Welcome to this joint presentation of the Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools and the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. My name is Guy Levitt. I'm the Director of Organizational Consulting Services for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. This session is part of a 9-part series of programs designed for school board charter school authorizers. This is session 6 of 9. Opening and operating high-quality charter schools. The purposes of charter schools are laid out as follows: to provide high-quality educational choices for students, to provide unique options for educational opportunities for students, as a means of fostering educational change and increasing student achievement, and also to create a partnership to maximize educational opportunities and resources. The Wisconsin Charter School Program has 3 objectives to it that are very important in the state. First is supporting the growth of high-quality charters in Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, they're also giving preference to those charters that are focused on improving academic outcomes for educationally disadvantaged students in grades 7 through 12. A second objective is also to strengthen and improve authorizing quality and also the promotion of best practices for all authorizers in Wisconsin. And the final objective in Wisconsin is promoting collaboration and sharing of best practices between those high-quality charter schools and other schools across the state. And again, particularly to those schools that experience difficulty in adequately serving educationally disadvantaged students. So the question becomes, why create a charter school? Well, first of all, if you receive a proposal that fits within the vision of a district, that would be a good reason to authorize a charter. Also, as you review a charter proposal, does it serve a population of students who are currently being underserved within the traditional educational setting in the district? And finally, it gives you the freedom to experiment on a better way to meet the needs of children. What do you need before you begin? Obviously, you've got to start with a vision. And that vision is going to give you a picture of where you hope to be at some point in the future. You also need to look and say, is there a need for that charter school, and does it fit within our vision? And the final piece before you begin is you've got to make sure that you've got agency commitment. So as an authorizer, you have to determine that you are on board with authorizing a charter school before you begin. Creating a vision, again, is something that's not taken lightly. It's not about where we are, but it's also about where we hope to be going. And when you look at a vision, you're taking a look 3 to 5 years out, and you're trying to get a picture or an image of maybe what better might look like 3 to 5 years down the road. Also, in creating a vision, without some involvement and without some engagement in that vision, you're not going to have much commitment, and your chances of successfully achieving that vision are really minimized. Once you have a vision, if it becomes a reality and is reflected in the daily actions of the district, that vision is likely to be achieved. Here are a couple of sample vision statements just to give you a flavor for them. The first one being to create a school district that is focused on personalized learning so that our students will be successful in college and career life. Certainly gives a picture of where you're hoping to be at some point down the road. Second one is to create a school district that prepares students for our changing world. Again, I'll look to the future, kind of looking to be in a better place. Vision is not a new concept. As a matter of fact, nearly 2,000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Seneca explained the importance of vision with this statement: When a man does not know what harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind. And I think that says an awful lot about what we're thinking of when we're thinking of a vision. You want to have a clear picture of where you hope to be. And a good vision in a district can lead to and will lead to student achievement. Having that shared vision, what's the district looking to become? Follow that with a mission and a purpose. Why do we exist, and how are we going to get from where we are right now to realizing that vision? And then the goals become the stepping stones along the way, the action plans that actually help you achieve that vision. Vision many times is followed by development of a strategic plan, and that vision is used to guide that planning process. Once you have that vision, you start to develop your goals and your strategies to help you achieve that vision. As part of that goal setting, you're also going to have staff working and creating work plans to help implement the strategies you developed. And then staff is going to be sharing that information periodically with the board, and is also going to be reporting regularly on the progress and what adjustments need to be made along the way to continue toward achieving that district vision. The question, can a charter school move the district toward the board's vision? Well, does it fit well with the other components of the district's strategic plan? If so, then there's a high likelihood it'll do that. Is the authorizing school board confident that that charter school is going to provide equal or better student achievement than the status quo? And finally, is the authorizing board confident it can achieve the goals set forth in the strategic plan? In other words, does that board have the capacity to authorize as well as monitor quality charter schools? NACSA is the National Association for Charter School Authorizers, and they've put together a publication called Principles and Standards, and they've also got a web page which is found at naxa.org. And NACSA provides a nice guiding document to go along with what Wisconsin is doing on charter schools, but also what's happening in other states around the country. NACSA has 3 core principles for quality charter schools, and they're universal principles: maintaining high standards, upholding school autonomy, and protecting student and public interests. And we'll talk about each of those 3 core principles in the following slides. Maintaining high standards starts with the authorizing board setting high standards for approving charter schools. It's followed by cultivating charter schools that the board feels meet an identified educational need within the district. Once a charter school is authorized, the board is also then responsible for the oversight of that charter school over time, making sure that they're meeting the performance standards and targets that they have outlined in their proposal. And the final thing on maintaining high standards for that authorizer is to be willing to close charter schools that are failing to meet the standards that have been set forth by law or by contract. The second principle is upholding school autonomy. And a real important part of that is honoring governing board independence from the authorizer. And it's very difficult to honor that independence when at the same time you've also got a monitoring function that a board's got to consider. You've got to give that charter permission to advance the vision and the culture that they want to have in their school. So you've got to have kind of a hands-off policy toward that to allow them to have the freedom to advance their vision and advance their culture. Another thing that the authorizing board needs to understand is that the charter school is who determines the instructional programming design and also how they're planning on using their time. And finally, the authorizer needs to give the charter school the authority to determine how to expend the budget in accordance with the contract that's been developed between the authorizer and the charter school. Protecting student and public interests is a third leg, and ensuring that the admission or that the contract that admission is non-selective and non-discriminatory. Ensuring that you're providing appropriate services for all students in accordance with the charter contract and the law. You've got to ensure that the open meetings law, that the public records law, and the pupil records law are adhered to. These are statutes that the charter school does not have a freedom to overlook. And of course, the authorizer has to ensure that you've got a fiscally responsible operation. There are a number of authorizer responsibilities, and probably the most important of those is that the charter authorizer is responsible for soliciting applications for charter schools, but also for having a way of evaluating those applications. So you're going to need some type of an evaluation rubric. In the Wisconsin Charter School Law, it says you must consider NACSA principles and standards. It doesn't say you have to follow them, but you certainly do want to consider them, and they're absolutely worth considering. In Wisconsin, you need to give preference to schools that serve at-risk students. You want to approve applications only if they are serving an identified need. And then you've got to monitor performance and compliance, and the final responsibility is submitting an annual authorizer report to the Department of Public Instruction as well as to the legislature. These are some points about quality charter schools. First of all, they don't discriminate. They don't discriminate in enrollment procedures. They don't discriminate in the students that they're serving. They simply are non-discriminatory. You provide quality education to all students that are served within that charter school. You comply with the laws applicable to charter schools, including the open meetings law, the public records law, and the pupil records law. Employing qualified staff. Normally, the staff for the charter school is provided by the authorizer. A quality charter also has to demonstrate fiscal responsibility, and they need to have parental involvement. The next question is, does the district have the infrastructure needed to support high quality or high standards, autonomy, and oversight? And the first is the academic resources. Do you have high standards? The second area is the human resources. And finally, do you have the financial resources? There are similarly a number of expectations for charter school applicants. When you put a proposal together for a charter school, you need to be able to present a clear and compelling mission. What do you hope to accomplish in your charter? You need to outline a quality educational program for the school. How are you going to do things differently to educate those students? You need to have a solid business plan for operating the charter in those first 5 years and beyond. You need to provide evidence of effective governance, and that is, in many cases, your charter school governance board. You need management structures and systems, or you need access to those. You've got to have founding team members that come from different walks of life and have different capabilities, and you've got to be able to demonstrate evidence of being able to execute your plan successfully. Charter schools have to be able to demonstrate when they do a proposal that they are able to meet the federal definition of a charter school. As a charter school authorizer, you've got to let them remain independent of the school and autonomous. It has to be a school and not a program. It needs to be financially viable and sustainable, and it also needs to meet the charter school contract benchmarks outlined under state statute 118.40(1)(m). A successful charter school really begins with the governance board. They've got to be passionate about what they're doing, and they've got to believe in the mission of that charter school. They've got to understand their charter, they've got to know their deliverables, and they've got to be clear and consistent with a means to measure success. The governance board has to have a clear sense of the academic excellence and their role in promoting it. They need to have a plan for effective oversight of the academic program, and they also have to plan to oversee the financial health of the school district. These are charter school performance standards. You need to establish standards to evaluate schools using objective and verifiable student achievement measures. You need to define clear academic and financial, organizational, and performance standards and targets. You need to include expectations for appropriate access to education, support services, and outcomes, particularly for students with disabilities. You've got to define sources of the academic data that are going to be used to form the evidence base for evaluation and for future renewal of the charter school. And you need to define resources or sources of financial data that's going to form the basis for evaluation and for future renewal. The contract term and negotiation of that term, as well as execution, are outlined here. The authorizer needs to execute a contract with a governing board independent from the authorizer. You can grant that charter school contract for an initial period of up to 5 years. You've got to define the material terms of the contract, and this is where you really get into the nitty-gritty of this. Is you need to spell out all of the important points that have got to be adhered to in that contract. You've got to be sure that there is a mutual understanding between the charter authority and the governance board of the charter school before proceeding to authorize that contract. And then once that contract is authorized, you also have to have a means of allowing contract amendments as they may be needed. Services that could be provided by a charter authorizer to a charter school might be as follows. You may be providing space within existing facilities for that charter school. You may be sharing some of your management costs, which would make good fiscal sense. You're going to provide, in most cases, access to co-curricular programming for charter school students. You're probably going to be providing not only special education services, but access to school psychological services. If you're operating within your own facilities, you're probably going to be including food service as a district provided service. And then finally, you are going to be providing, more than likely, transportation. These are all services that might be spelled out as part of that charter school contract and need to be identified clearly within the contract. This concludes section 6 of this 9-part presentation.